What's up, people? We are live for another hashtag TQIF Friday night. Here to talk about that Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 3 on Tex-Trek. And we have a new guest this week, so very, very exciting. So anyone in the live audience joining us, everyone, please welcome Rachel on board. We're going to go ahead and kick things off. I'm Fathery.
This is Brian.
I'm Rachel.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 152nd installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we talk all about Star Trek all the time, where we have deep talks about Star Trek. And today we are discussing We'll Always Have Tom Paris, the third episode of the second season of Star Trek Lower Decks, written by Willis and directed by Bob Suarez. Before we get into that, though, I do want to let everyone know that we do have a newcomer with us. We have a guest, Rachel, joining. Rachel, how you doing?
Doing good. Thank you for inviting me on.
Well, thank you for being here. And I want to give the audience a chance to get to know you in just a second, but I want to let everyone know that on our YouTube channel, for those of you listening to the podcast, if you go check out YouTube, there is a stream featuring me and the great Starfleet boy from about a week ago at this point, where we recap my recent visit to Las Vegas for the Star Trek 55-year mission convention. So if you have any curiosity about what STLV was like this year, please, by all means, check that out. That is available. And Rachel, I just want to let you get a chance to tell us a little bit about yourself. You're obviously a big Star Trek fan. What got you into Star Trek?
My dad at first, and then I don't think he realized what monster he had brought to the world. He's like, "Oh, I'll just show my kid a couple episodes of Star Trek." And then I got really into it in middle school. When I got home from school, there was an hour before my brothers got home, and Spike TV showed Next Generation reruns. And I would watch them religiously, and my mom was like, "Don't you also like Jane Austen and stuff?" I was like, "Yes, but this is also cool."
What were your favorite episodes or characters, or anything that really stood out to you? Or did you have a favorite show?
I think now I would say I do really like the current Trek, but if of the ones I grew up with, I think it's Deep Space Nine now. But honestly, okay, one of the things that I really like Deanna Troi for the reason that she was allowed to be feminine and still taken seriously, because I feel like a lot of 90s and early 2000s, for a woman to get taken seriously, she kind of had to act very masculine, and that wasn't me. I liked all the sci-fi stuff, but I was weak and girly.
Were there any particular episodes that really spoke to you? There weren't that many Troy-centric episodes, but there were a couple of really good ones.
There are some good ones. I really like The Loss. I really liked any time they actually showed her being able to be a counselor. I will say
wasn't
not
often.
all Troy-centric episodes are great. You tend to get, lack of a better thing, she tended to get assaulted a lot, which was not fantastic.
Did you find Guinan horning in on the counseling operation
I mean,
good or bad?
I love Guinan, and like Whoopi Goldberg's amazing. So I liked that she was there, and then would also be like, I feel like there's someone whose job this is. It was also, I feel, probably convenient just to have Guinan be able to have this one set, so they could just film around whatever Whoopi Goldberg had going on.
Um, Let me also ask. You said that you're into like the current Trek now. You obviously watch Lower Decks. I assume you've seen the episode we're about to talk about.
Yes.
Out of the new shows, what's really stood out to you?
I really love Discovery, and I do really love Lower Decks. But one thing I've loved about Discovery is I've been able to get my friends who aren't necessarily into like older shows into Star Trek that way, and then trick them into getting into the older shows with that. Like I was like, I've given you a gateway drug, and now look at this.
And you're
What
currently on a podcast that discusses Star Trek Discovery, right?
Yes, I'm on the Discotheque podcast. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus, and we've been doing. We're going to talk about Lower Decks a little bit. We were supposed to do an episode last week, but some of our my co-hosts are East Coasters, and we're dealing with hurricane things, which seemed more important than recording a podcast.
Well, that happens. And I don't. Is it okay like if I out like what city you're in? I don't know
Yeah,
if you want
you
to keep that.
can.
But okay, you're here in Austin, Texas,
Hmm,
with me and Brian.
yes,
Even though we've never met. We've only crossed paths on the Twitter sphere.
on the Twitter sphere. Yeah, which like if you want to hang out, that's cool. We're here.
All right. Well, we're going to discuss this episode in just a moment in great detail. We're going to break it down storyline by storyline and carve it up piece by piece and analyze every little bit of it. But before we do that, we always like to give everyone a chance to just kind of give their opening statement and express their general takeaway on the episode, just kind of like your broad feelings on the episode. Brian, since you're a Tex-Trek veteran, I'll let you go first. What was kind of your general take on "We'll always have Tom Paris"?
um I mean, I think the title was my probably the second best joke in the thing. I mean, I liked the whole episode, but I was laughing my head off when I saw that title. Oh, that was amazing. And it actually is a completely appropriate title too. It doesn't feel gratuitous at all when you get done with the episode. You're like, no, that works as well as anything's going to work for this episode. Yeah, I after a disappointing season premiere, I've really liked the last episode, and this episode I thought found to be quite enjoyable. I don't know if there was a lot of meat on this one's bones, but I don't think it was trying to be meaty, and the show generally doesn't. So and that's, I laughed a lot. It was fun. It kept my interest completely, both first time and second time I watched it. So yeah, it was delightfully fun. And I guess single biggest thing was we got to see a little bit more Orion culture, which is what I've been hoping for ever since
Yeah.
they announced Tendi as a character. That we would finally get a window into one of the most the culture of one of the most famous Star Trek aliens, even if most people probably just don't know the species name and just know those green women, because we've only seen this very narrow sliver of what they're about. And I'm like, there's got to be more of them, and more to them than that. Um, so yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Rachel, what was your take on this episode?
I really enjoyed this episode, and I agree with Brian. I really enjoyed the title. I really like Tom Paris, so that was always going to be a plus for me. But I really like that like I enjoyed all three storylines. Where I feel like a lot of times if there's an A or B storyline, I was like, I enjoy this one more than this, and I was like, I enjoy all of these. I'm having fun. And I agree. I think this was a bit more of like a fun episode than like plot driven, but I think I guess not. It like I think it delved into character things we really needed, especially with like Tendi and Mariner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I suppose, yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's not plot driven. The plots are clearly just something made up as an excuse to push the characters around into the situations they want to get them into, which I guess is often the case in comedies, but
Yeah.
on this one more so than other Lower Decks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, you know, I really enjoyed that A story with Tindy and Mariner. Again, like Brian said, getting some deets on the Orions, getting those Orion details. That was really cool. I loved that we got like that glimpse, and you know, like Brian, I was really hoping for that when Tindy was announced. The Orions were like the third or fourth, maybe, like Star Trek species. If you go back to like they're in the very first episode ever made of Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was really cool. The B and C stories though, they got a little too silly for me, but I kind of liked them in theory. Just a little bit of the execution, I thought it got like a little too goofy in places, but I'll get into why. Um, the show has made it clear that it's very very self-aware, and I feel like with this episode, this is the most self-aware that it's ever been. You know, things like calling Voyager Voy, all the little like wink wink things to the audience, saying like oh Mariner, you and I have never had a mission together. Like this should have happened a long time ago. It's like, oh, can you hear the writers like, you know, writing that into the episode, like their
What
own
sort of
thoughts?
sci-fi things are we doing today, or whatever the line was?
Exactly. So just you know, keep in mind that the show is going to maintain this very like self-aware nature. Or, you know, some might even say brace yourself for it if it's not what you uh hope to get out of Star Trek. But yeah, like they do get like a lot of like really good humor out of that. You know, bringing in those Franklin Mint commemorative plates from the 90s that I actually have a few of those. It's just yeah, it's funny. It makes me laugh. So that, you know, the things that I think do get like a little too goofy or out of place, I can overlook those. This is still like an example of the pros outweighing the cons for me on this show, and I loved seeing Tom Paris again. I wasn't expecting that. I don't watch the trailers for the episode, so I was just thinking that we would maybe just have him as a plate. I didn't know we were gonna get like actual flesh and blood Tom Paris on the Cerritos, so that was a nice surprise for me.
Yeah, they kind of pull a bit of switch or twist there by saying, "Oh, Robert Duncan McNeil's going to be there," but then they show us a trailer where it's just a talking plate, and then, no, he's actually there.
I think I saw something where Robert Duncan McNeil had tweeted a screenshot that I was like, well, that's clearly a person, not a talking plate. But I will
Okay.
say I ordered the plate. I need the plate.
Nice. I'm still debating if I'm going to do it or not, but I don't know. Maybe I should just bite the bullet and do it.
Does the plate have Lower Deck style Paris, or
it looks like the plate
It looks like the plate
in the
from the
show.
okay, they didn't like try to do a what it would look like in a live action show version or
And
live.
Also,
No.
one of the reasons I ended up getting it is when I first saw the plate and that website wasn't up yet and they weren't saying what price it was. I was convinced it was going to be like hundreds of dollars, and they're like $30, and I was like, oh, here.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I don't remember what they cost in the old days because I used to like. I'd actually like get those for like Christmas. Like my mom would like get me one every year for Christmas. It was probably like easy. She was like, "Oh, I can just like order this out of the magazine, and that'll shut the kid up for a little bit." But yeah, I still have a few of those. I have 7. I know where 3 of them are, so the other 4 are boxed up somewhere. But yeah, we can go ahead and delve into the episode. I want to talk about the A story first, and that's the Tinder and Mariner girl trip. They are on the mission from Dr. Tiana to go to Qualar 2 and get the Cation libido post. So we get to visit what I thought from the season trailer was going to be Free Cloud on Picard, but no, this is Qualar 2. It's something from the next generation, and They bring on this scratching post onto the shuttlecraft, and end up breaking it and have to go through all these weird locations to try to repair it. What did y'all think about just like this concept of the retrieving the Cation libido post and the two of them on this mission together, and Mariner breaking the thing, potentially getting Tendi in trouble?
At first I kind of was like, oh, it kind of like isn't great. Like it kind of sucks for Tendi that like it's Mariner's fault, and then Mariner, except at the end, I kind of like the Mariner's like, oh, I'll take responsibility for it in a very weird way.
No, it's just like the one where they had to go deliver that Klingon ambassador, and once again, Mariner doesn't follow common sense rules and screws everything up for her friend or fellow crew member. And again, she doesn't really apologize for screwing everything up for them, and she just cheats the system to avoid any real consequences for her actions. I mean, I guess they throw her in the brig because they figure she's lying and that it must have been something worse because Mariner, I guess. But which, I mean, maybe which even then, I guess being thrown in the brig seems a little extreme, but maybe that's just the default position when you're, when you're so far past 3 strikes and you're out on the Cerritos, is just every infraction gets you thrown in the brig. And we know you're lying about that B. So whatever it is, we figure you're probably supposed to be in the brig over this. But I don't know. I mean, it's aggravating that she gets, I mean, they say they aren't friends until the end, which seems silly to me. They're clearly friends before this, but she gets her friends into a bunch of trouble against their wishes, largely against their wishes. I guess she eventually got talked into it, but and then she kind of just cheats her way out of it. And I guess she takes responsibility on some level, but she can't just say, I broke the statue or something like that and be done with it and get thrown in the brig for that. It's got to be some sort of weird shenanigans. She's got to be thrown in the brig on her terms, and
she's
a
little extra is what you're saying.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm kind of feeling like that's a deliberate thing, and that maybe they will address it at some point, because they did address a lot of my other concerns with Mariner last season. So I suspect there'll be an episode where like people actually just get fed up with her screwing things up for them, and then not really seeming to show any real sense of apology or regret for it. I mean, they work to solve the problem on some sort of level, but she never says, yeah, that was a mistake. I'm really sorry I stressed you out about that. She doesn't say that. She didn't say it to Boimler. She doesn't say it to Tendi. And I guess, I don't know, it aggravates me. It would drive me nuts if I was.
Do you know who she did
with
apologize to? Was a couple episodes ago. She apologized to Jet when she was like, oh yeah, I got us in trouble. These Roomba robot things are going to kill all of us on this collector's ship right now, and it was my fault. So
yeah,
I thought that was interesting that they did show like a little bit of growth in her then, but I guess that's not going to be a consistent thing, or not just yet anyways.
Yeah. I was sad that Jet didn't become a more regular part, because I think he would have been good, healthy in universe for the group's dynamic to have somebody to stand up to Mariner. But anyway, that's last episode.
Yeah, we do see him in this episode. I thought it was interesting that we learned that Mariner had served at Deep Space Nine. Apparently at the same time Worf was there.
Yeah, so she was there, I mean, during the series, and we
saw the flashback where she's on Deep Space Nine last season.
Right, but there was that ship, the Keto was docked there. So I just thought that she was on that ship. I guess that was like a little hint, that was a little foreshadowing. Like maybe that was when she transferred from DS9 to the Keto.
After she saw that one dude transform, she had to get out of there. Too much drama.
She's like, I can't handle it anymore.
Yeah. I think I also saw at least the initial breaking of the statue very much an accident. Like they were trying to put it back in, she kind of tripped.
Yeah, but they know they're not supposed to be getting in the box and pulling it out and playing with it in the first place.
It was her idea. It was her idea to take it out. So yeah. I guess I guess they are technically both guilty, but Mariner more guilty than Tendi.
Yeah, Tendi never would have pulled it out of the box without Mariner pushing and yanking her along on this thing.
But
So
I like Mariner. She's Rachel. You probably don't know this, but like she's one of my favorite Star Trek characters, and I like her on this show. So I'm not trying to like beat up on the character, but yeah, I can
No,
see like
she's
she's a little bit more responsible here. What I do like that they're hinting at, in this episode that there is more backstory. I want to know why she has a different last name than her parents. They're both named Freeman. Why is her name Mariner?
Is her father also named Freeman?
Yeah, they said they called him Admiral Freeman, so that was
Huh.
weird.
I think I missed that. I always just assumed she had her father's last name and that her mother probably was an officer before she got married and didn't want to change it.
Yeah, that's what I thought initially, but that's not the case. I don't know if she just picked the name Mariner, if she changed her name on her own, or what happened there.
Could be the like the theory that people have with Tom Paris and his TNG, like not Tom Paris but kind of Tom
Nick
Paris
Locarno.
character. That the
Locarno,
theory
right?
is I
Yeah.
think it is Locarno. The theory was that he pretended to go by a different name so he wouldn't be like Admiral Paris's son.
I also want to say I love the idea of Klingon acid punk. That's amazing. Somebody needs to do a CD of that. I mean, I'm sure somebody's literally, as we speak, working on it out there. Some fans are, but yes,
I agree. I actually liked the music we got here. I like the thrashy stuff. I'm a bit of a metalhead, but yeah, like the thrashy or punk I can really get into, or the more like psychedelic acidic stuff. So yeah, I'm a huge Klingon fan. So give me the Klingon acid punk. That was great.
Yeah.
I also did enjoy the confirmation that when they go and see Tendi's cousin, the confirmation that Mariner is, I don't know how she identifies, but definitely queer. She was like,
yes,
she was like, bad, whatever. Like that's.
I'm by no means an expert on that stuff, but I think the correct term is probably she's pansexual, because she said she's into boys, girls, non-binary, kind of like any type of
definitely
any gender or orientation.
And certainly seems to be fine with aliens too. So
I mean, I feel like you'd have to be at that point, right? Like
I think everyone in Star Trek's fine with aliens. Across species doesn't seem to be a big deal in general. I mean, there might be specific species combos that somebody's not into, but
like, speaking of the Orions and their like original appearance in the first episode of Star Trek, I think that was always like built into the premise from Gene Roddenberry. Like, yeah, sometimes aliens are really hot, so that was always intentional,
Yeah, the attractiveness of the other. So
yeah, all Star Trek fans have crushes on at least a few non-human Star Trek characters, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah,
we all have them.
Definitely.
I did think they keep bringing up this friend gag where like, oh, how come you don't know this about me? And they play it both way, back and forth with how come you don't know this about me? And they seem to be honestly a little upset about it. And they act like they're like, no, I talk about this stuff all the time. And then at the end, even Mariner says, actually, I'm a very private person. I don't open up about this stuff. And I thought it was cute the first time, but then it was like every single scene with them, they had to do something like that, do another one of these reveals. And I like the reveals themselves. The fact that they made a big deal about not knowing this about each other kind of was annoying to me. I was like, dude, just, yeah, you don't know everything about each other. Just accept it and move on. Don't keep getting shocked about it. And yeah, so if it was supposed to be funny, it wasn't.
That added a little bit of realism, I thought, because like I've been in situations like that where, like my current job, for example, I've worked there for 4.5 years. I'm hopefully, God willing, I'm about to leave that job in about a week and a half. But in the time that I've been there, like I actually like there's tons of people that like I've worked with a lot, but I don't really know them, and I don't think they know much about me either. I don't know what they know, but like I'm sure like yeah, there's tons about like my personal life. Like if you told them like, oh yeah, there's this dude recording a Star Trek podcast right now that you work with, they'd be like, oh, I had no idea that he was into that type of stuff, you know. So I
They
think that is
don't know
something that
you
does
like Star
happen.
Trek? Okay. That is a bit surprising. Nobody can hang out with me long without learning that I'm a big sci-fi nerd.
I actually shocked a coworker the other day. So I'm a military brat. I grew up overseas a lot. I moved a lot. But I went to high school in Japan, and I just was somehow something earthquakes came up, and I was like, well, I was in Japan during like the 2011 like big one in March, and everyone
Oh
just
wow.
looked at me like, what? And I was like, oh, I thought you would have known that. I've known you a while.
No, not knowing her first name was a little much because I'm pretty sure that when Tendi came on board the Cerritos, like she introduced herself as "Hi, I'm Ensign Devani Tendi," but
And wouldn't she have looked at a roster of who's on the, what is it, beta team, or I
Beta
can't remember what
Shift.
beta shift? There would have been, data pads going back and
I
forth with her other team members' names on them.
I honestly kind of appreciated that because I had low key forgotten what Tendy's first name was, and I was like, oh yeah.
I do I do have a friend who says like he has to use Facebook to remember people's last names because he can't keep up with them anymore. He knows too many people, he can't remember all the names. So I guess it does
Okay, I
happen.
have the problem where when people friends get married and they change their last names, and I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
I
I
don't know
hate
what
that.
it is anymore.
Yeah, people stop doing that. It's really confusing. But
I
uh,
was like, put a hyphen in there. Just help me find you.
yeah, or at least put your name in like your maiden name in the parentheses after your new name.
Yes, please.
But yeah, this is the part of the episode I liked the most, where we do get into the Orion culture a little bit, where they go to the Orion outpost. And I just like love that line of dialogue when Tendi says, I have it right here. When Tendi says, a lot of humans think we are all thieves and pirates. Wait, my cousin works in a thieves' den and a pirate outpost in the sector. It's like
I,
that idea
I
that
think
I think.
what
Oh,
sold
go
it for
ahead.
me was the follow-up. As long as you aren't bothered by the optics.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, that was definitely the best joke of the episode for me. I laughed so hard about that.
That
But I
was
think a lot of people
fantastic.
experience that, like you get tired of all these cultural stereotypes, but then it's like, oh yeah, but like some of these actually are like pretty real. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like a big part of some people's experience. And the whole idea of like Mariner going undercover, I guess, they're pretty good at disguising people as aliens in Star Trek, but I guess if you're doing it like last minute in a hurry in a shuttlecraft, all you have is like some temporary spray paint.
Yeah.
But it was still fun to see just the character designs, like the disguises they're wearing when they meet cousin Diani, and the his reaction to Tendi, where he's just literally like kissing her boots when she runs up, punches him in the stomach, and he just like falls on his knees. Mistress of the Winter Constellation. That's really cool. That's a pretty metal title.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
like
kind
that
of
we got all the variations of Orion's skin color, at least, or at least a
yeah.
good sampling.
Yeah, no, I like that they weren't all the same shade of green because I feel like back in the day, all the Orions were the same shade of green, and I was like, I feel like no, that's not how skin tone works.
Yeah, I mean, humans come in a pretty wide variety of colors, and also like the
Yeah.
hair color. Remember, my good friend Sean, who on YouTube is known as Trek on the Tube. One of his complaints going into Lower Decks is he's like, "Why does Tendi have green hair? We've never seen an Orion with green hair. They always have like real dark hair." I was like, "Well, she's from a different continent, and humans come in a variety of hair colors." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I guess that works." But yeah, here we see
Also,
like
they
some
probably
some
have hair
varying hair
dye.
colors. Yeah, you would think if we have that in the 20th century, it would still be around in the 24th. I'm just Toddy. Hey, they fixed that for you, so calm down. You can chill out,
I
bro.
wonder if that was her hair dye gadget that she used on Mariner's skin.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah,
And
the
that's why
hair
it
dye
didn't
became a skin dye.
stick. And that's why it didn't work so well and last long, because it wasn't made for human skin. It was made for Orion hair. I
You
don't
know
know,
what? I'm
just
taking that
spitballing.
headcanon.
Yeah.
But it was weird when the guy keeps yelling false green, false green. Like, is that like an established term? Like, does that mean something, false green? But I guess that's like like to Orion's, that's like blackface, maybe.
It does make me wonder, is people painting themselves green a thing in Star Trek? Is that something the Orions have to deal with?
It's a thing at Star Trek conventions. Like I saw some Orions walking
Well, yeah.
around in Vegas a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, well, yes, but
Oh my god, were they staining things?
Were they what?
Staining things.
I imagine that like the bottoms of the showers at the Hotel Rio probably might have like some green stains on it, like after the Star Trek convention. That
I
probably happens.
have gone to anime conventions because anime convention is pretty popular in Texas. And I do remember they had a convention had to like ban body paint because I think it was mostly Homestuck people were just staining hotels. Like they just weren't doing like they weren't like doing anything like kind of press power to keep it on. So they would just get up from chairs and just be blue or green left over.
I guess that makes. I never thought about it, but yeah, that would be a problem.
Yeah, well, our
If you
body
go to a
paint
convention,
technology is
don't
not quite there
destroy
yet.
the place with your cosplay.
What did y'all think when Tendi thought that, oh, Mariner, you and Boimler are dating, right? And she's like, no, he's like a pet to me. And then she says, like, what are you dating Rutherford? And Tendi, instead of saying like no, she says not really. Like, what does that mean? Like,
I didn't necessarily think Tendi thought they were dating, but more like, oh, the only person I see you hang around with a lot is this person. So I would think if you like anyone, it would be that person.
Yeah, given that they fight all the time, I could see how one would assume they must be romantically attracted to each other because all they do is fight.
I'm talking about Tendi and Rutherford.
Well, yeah, yeah, I weren't they kind of starting to become an item, and then they got Rutherford got his brain rebooted.
That might be why it's not really.
Oh yeah, maybe. Because she was possibly jealous about Ensign Barnes, and she's like determined, like, no, you do not like her. You do not want to go on a third date with her. I must fix your brain. In our audience, we have a live comment from Starfleet Boy, who couldn't join us tonight, but he does say that Orion cousin was hot. So we have one Diani stan confirmed, or two Diani stans confirmed. But yeah, I guess Mariner's into the biceps.
No, that was fun. I was like, because have we ever seen her like lose it because of somebody's sexual attractiveness before? Is that, I don't remember that happening.
She was into Ransom when he was being like, oh, so ethical on the crystal planet.
Yeah, you're right. Okay,
the third episode. That was the third episode in season 1. This is the third episode in season 2.
Apparently, you got to show some biceps like without his shirt on or something if you're gonna catch her eyes.
But yeah, this is where they pretty much say goodbye to half of the Cation scratching post. They do the dramatic thing, like just like drop it, I'll save you, and then they escape the Orions. But that's when Mariner has the idea of like, okay, Tendi, I'm not gonna let you get in trouble. I'm going to do ramming speed, and she goes kind of crazy, that insane look in her eyes, and then crashes into the shields of the Cerritos. I love the way that they played that, by the way. Where it's just like the big build up to like a non-event of just shuttle just bouncing off. The animation was hilarious. It was very well edited and well animated.
One of my biggest laughs of the episode was the captain just going, well, that was weird.
I would have added a shield bubble around the shuttle as well when they bonk, so that you see both of them have shields up.
Yeah,
but
I think it's a very thin one. It's like super flat. There's like a little bit of green outline on the shuttle. It's very small.
Very conformal.
I'm trying to remember in the first episode of this season, where she has that holodeck thing at the beginning. It like almost she goes like ramming speed there too, right?
Oh yeah, on that Miranda class
So I feel like she's finally like, I get to do it in real life, and bounce.
I've been practicing on the holodeck for this all my life. But they have that heart-to-heart talk on the shuttle too, right before that, where Mariner says, yeah, she normally doesn't open up because her friends are always getting promoted and they transfer away and stuff, and it makes it hard for her to bond with people. And that kind of reinforces how upset she must have been at the end of season 1 when Boimler, who like became her friend over the course of season 1, took a promotion and a transfer, and it was like, oh, I finally like bonded with someone again, and then like the same thing happened. So kind of makes me sad. It makes me want to be friends with her. It's like, oh, it's okay. Like I won't abandon you like everyone else.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I'd also imagine in last season she was probably trying to not share too much personal information because she was trying to keep it a secret that the captain was her mother.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it could be that there is what she really wants is a close connection with somebody, but because of the way she clearly doesn't have a terribly close connection with her parents, and she doesn't. We haven't heard about any siblings, have we? Do we?
Oh, that'd be interesting if there was like if she had like a sister or a brother who's like the golden child, who's like like the ideal kid, and she's like the black sheep. That'd be pretty funny.
I'd almost want them to change it up and make the surprise sibling is the black sheep and Mariner's the well-behaved one, and like the other one is like a literal sociopath or something.
I thought you were gonna say a literal sheep.
No, a literal sociopath that's like got a wanted posters out for them.
For some reason, like, and I can think of some examples that will contradict this. I feel like only children are very common in Star Trek.
Yeah, I think that's because like writers don't want to have to create like siblings for everyone.
Yeah,
but it's true with a lot of superheroes too. Like a lot of like comic book superheroes are only children.
And I'm like, cool, that's actually pretty uncommon in real life. Like,
well, it could be that. I mean, there just isn't a lot of. Maybe there isn't a lot of baby making in the 24th century. Maybe there's just not. It's not seen as a priority by most couples to have a whole bunch of children.
I mean, the millennial generation is kind of doing that now. Like the people born after 1985 are having like the fewest kids ever in recent history.
And I mean, studies show that once the girls and the women get to start going to schools, the populations tend to start reducing. That they have less children, and the couples will have fewer children and stuff.
Imagine that. Like some women don't want to just like sit at home and pump out 10 babies. Like, who would have thought it?
So, and if we could just keep keep the planet around long enough, the population as a whole planet wide might reduce and solve a lot of climate problems. But we have to. I think we're damaging the climate faster than the population growth thing is. The reversal of that is going to take too long. We need like 100 years to get that totally turned around, and I don't know if we have 100 years.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to figure that out tonight, though. But
probably not.
Just back on topic. One of the things that happens when Mariner is talking about how her reasons for not opening up and bonding with people is Tendi says that she's such a people pleaser type person who's so worried about other people being happy that she rarely talks about stuff about herself to people. And that's not something that like I relate to, but I know people that are like that who probably do connect with that.
I do. That's I was like, oof, I get that. And I really like Tendi saying that, because that's something I've noticed about Tendi, that how much she like needs people to like her. Like, I'm obviously not the extreme of Tendi because it's a comedic show, so they would like take it to its farthest extreme.
Right, dialed to 11.
Yeah, but no, I very much relate to that.
How much do you? I mean, there certainly seems a certain amount of resistance from her to the traditional stereotypes of Orions that as portrayed in Star Trek thus far. And I'm trying to figure out how much of that is she just doesn't want to play into the stereotype because she feels it's unhealthy for her culture as a whole, and how much of that is that's just not me. That's not who I am.
That's a good point.
I'm kind of curious how much of column A and how much of column B that is.
It's probably
Yeah, I can
like
see both.
mixed. But I feel like, well, the obvious example of last season is the guy who she accidentally messed up his ascension, and how much he was like, I must make this guy like me.
Yeah, she was kind of obsessed with it for a little bit there. But yeah, like I definitely like know people. They're like, Brian, you when we covered that episode, you said that you found that kind of relatable.
Yeah, I could say there's a I I have enough insecurity about my own self-image that I only really like myself. I have a tendency to only like myself when other people are liking me. So if I can make other people like me, then I'm feeling like, okay, I must not be that bad of a person because these people all seem to think I'm great. So,
Well,
and that
if
is
people in our
definitely
audience, if people in our audience like you, they should comment and let you know. Like Blue Sparrow says, by the way, Rachel is awesome. So people like Rachel.
Thank you. I appreciate
Starfleet
that.
Boy agrees.
Yes. Well, I like Rachel as well. I think as the guest, she should be getting the praise and not me. So,
I mean, there's plenty of praise to go around, I'm sure.
Well, what do y'all think about like the big payoff at the end of the A story where Mariner goes to the brig, she'll take the blame, no big deal, no sweat off her back, and then Tendi still tries to apologize to Dr. Tiana, but the doctor is just like, I didn't care about that, I just wanted the box, and she just wanted to be a cat playing in a box.
I mean, it was great fun. I laughed. My wife loves cats, and she laughed really hard. I have to assume that like the box was like the box she played in as a kitten or something.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Because there are these things called replicators that if you really just needed any box, you could get one.
That's what I was wondering. It's like she couldn't. This looks like a very simple design. You tell me she couldn't replicate that?
Yeah, I think you're right. Because I was thinking, I was like, this box in particular must have been important to her.
So,
honestly, I loved her little face while she was playing in the box. I was like, is this a little stupid? Maybe, but she looks adorable, and I don't care.
No, they do hold off on the Cations or just like cat jokes enough. Like they don't play it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that since they have been like a little reserved with it, it's okay when they do this. I mean, it's like too obvious of a gag not to do it. But that kind of surprised
the reason
me.
it works, the reason this gag works is that they haven't been doing them.
Right.
If they'd been doing them all the time, this would be just one more Cation cat joke. But because they had held off all this time, then we are totally blindsided by this one and don't see it coming at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think my favorite part of the joke was the two like officers and the rest of sickbay that looked for a second and went, "Oh, she's playing in a box, cool."
Oh yeah, like her staff,
their jobs,
the nurses.
I thought it was odd she made this big deal about I need to get you to get this thing for me in secret and not tell anybody because it's kind of there's this implication that it's embarrassing, and I can see how she might playing into cat stereotypes might not be something she wants to do, but then she does it in front of other people or be known that she does that. But then she does it in her office filled with big windows where all of her staff can see her, and was it just that the secret got out when they did the nose bump, and so now everyone on the ship knows, so she doesn't care anymore, or what?
I also thought that maybe she wasn't necessarily supposed to be using an ensign to go pick up like an errand for her, so she was like, maybe do this on the down low.
Yeah, that's what I thought. She was trying to keep like the rest of the senior officers from knowing about it. That's what I was thinking. But what I liked most about this Ace story is that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when we had the Strange Energies episode and Ransom was going insane, and how like no one seemed to like really take like that threat too seriously or like treat that as like too dangerous of a situation. It's almost like the characters know like they're not gonna die, and we kind of know like when they do like these funny storylines, they're not going to kill people because they want it to be funny at the end of the episode. They want you to be able to laugh at it, so it's not funny if Starfleet officers are being killed left and right. But I kind of thought that there was more suspense with this storyline where I was worried about like, oh no, they broke the statue. What are they going to do now? How are they going to get out of this? I was kind of like more invested and kind of felt higher stakes here than I did if they were just, dealing with deadly aliens shooting at them or something like that.
I get that.
I mean, it's like in my role playing games where, as I tend to tell new players, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to kill off your character unless you do something incredibly stupid, because I'd much rather torture your character than kill them off and have you make up a new one. That's no fun. So it's the idea that there's going to be this huge dysfunction on the ship where the doctor doesn't like Tendi anymore and Tendi's miserable. That's something that might happen, and that seems like that we're worried about that, whereas we're not really worried that they're going to kill Tendi. So
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the B story that features the special guest star Robert Duncan McNeil as Lieutenant Tom Paris. But yeah, this is the Boimler has his Voyager commemorative plates. He has the whole collection. He's excited to get Tom Paris to sign his Tom Paris plate, but he has not properly been added back to the security protocols on the ship. I guess he's having trouble, accessing anything. Can't go through doors. I like that appearance of Jet, by the way. He's like, I can carry you across the threshold like a bride. I thought that was funny. That made me laugh. I thought that was that's the type of joke I would make at someone. But yeah, what do you think about this craziness of going through the Jeffries tubes? Tom Paris showing up and Boimler, worried about this plate and eventually meeting Tom Paris, but he looks like a Kazon when he does and gets beat up.
I did really enjoy all of this. I kind of it probably is more supposed to just be that he wasn't added properly back into the security system, but part of me I was like, is it not recognizing him because he's a transporter clone?
Oh, maybe if he's the
yeah.
clone.
The premise is generally that the transporter clones are absolutely identical, but I could imagine that the computer somehow registers that there are two Brad Boimlers registered on two different ships as crew members, and clearly that's some changeling shit right there. There's something going on, and the computer just AI kicks in and has locked him out until somebody explains to the computer what's going on. And for some reason, Boimler, a man who loves to complain about everything, doesn't want to complain to Billups about this problem, which again was really odd.
Because he kept saying, I'm back in the system. So my guess is he was already back in the system, but something went wrong beyond that.
Well, I'm guessing that's why I said maybe the computer noticed that there are two Boimlers and activated some sort of ancient anti-shapeshifter protocol that was left over from the Dominion War that nobody knows about. And since nobody's pointing it out to the engineer or the computer specialists or the security specialists, nobody's fixing it because nobody knows it's a problem, because they tell Boimler.
You've been getting it right all season 2.
Yeah. At the beginning, they say, if you have any problems, just tell Billups. And he never calls Billups and just says, hey, I've got a problem. And it's not like he's usually not the sort of person who keeps quiet about his problems. He's usually pretty vocal about it. So I was a little surprised that he kept so quiet about it the whole time. And if they'd thrown in a little line about, hey, you're all self-assured and solving your own problems since you got back from the Titan, it really fixed it. That experience really helped you or something. And he said, yeah, it did. Then it would make a little more sense why he's decided I have to solve this myself. But I don't think there's a line that kind of justifies why he doesn't ask for help on this problem. He just decides it's just a new character trait he suddenly has, that he doesn't ask for help.
Thought, because I kind of took his line where he was like, oh my god, this ship doesn't recognize me, I wasn't able to be on the Titan, kind of his identity crisis is why he was doing this.
Yeah,
that, he has a little bit of a breakdown.
Yeah.
I mean, I was
listening to a talking plate, so
I was surprised to see that there's a Jeffries tube above the bridge, by the way. I thought the bridge was the very, toppest top of the saucer section, but
do they have a window in their roof on this ship? I mean, everything else
I
on the
don't think
bridge is
so.
very galaxy. Okay, because certainly if they have a window, that starts raising a lot of questions.
I would
But
assume they probably have a Jeffries tube, particularly for this purpose of in case they got locked out as a way to get into the bridge.
yeah, but you wouldn't put it on the ceiling where you have to like stand on somebody's shoulders to get out of the bridge. But
I mean, none of the Jeffries tubes in Star Trek have ever made sense to me location wise, so I was like, sure.
fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, I want to say thank you to Alexandra for all the kind words. They are appreciated as always.
Well,
But
I had problems with this part of the storyline just here, like the very end when, and it wasn't a big deal because it was kind of funny, but when Tom Paris is like, "Oh, that dude's a Kazon, I'm gonna beat him up," I was like, is this really like what a Kazon looks like? Like, I kind of thought he looked more like the Bad Batch character in the other Star franchise, Hunter, the Rambo looking clone in the new Star Wars
I
cartoon.
mean, if they had introduced a cartoon, a real Kazon showed up in Lower Decks, I could imagine it being drawn something like that. I mean, it's definitely one of those. Well, I don't know. I guess if we want to say he's got Paris has some old trauma from Kazon interaction in the Delta Quadrant, so much so that as soon as he sees one bursting onto the bridge, he just switches into, automatic old flashback fight the Kazon mode, and that's kind of how I headcanoned it, even though it really probably should have been filed under things that wouldn't happen in live action Star Trek.
This is how we kick ass in the Delta Quadrant.
See, I also was thinking because he wouldn't have actually seen a Kazon in a while, so maybe this is what a Kazon looks like in his memory. Because they left the Kazon in the early
I haven't seen one of those since the beginning of season 3, so
Yeah.
that was a hot minute ago. I just noticed, by the way, that didn't Tom wear a wedding ring after he and B'Elanna got married? I remember seeing that in the show.
I think
But
you're right. I think he did.
Maybe.
They didn't animate a ring on his hand, but they animated one on Riker's hand when it was showing Riker last week. So does that mean that Tom and B'Elanna are divorced? It's
my
canon now.
hunch-
They're divorced.
My hunch is there's some corn covering that ring, but
There we go.
Let's go with that because I do not accept that they're divorced.
that
blame
would
it
be
on the
sad.
corn.
It was like one of the few story arcs that properly developed and paid off in that show. So character arcs. I would be sad if they undid that. I
think
suspect
the Doctor
maybe
and
he
Seven
took his
both
ring
got
off
good
because
character
he worried it was gonna get caught on something in the ship while he was hitting some buttons. This made me wonder because I don't remember how long after Voyager does this take place, because I was like, it's not that long, right? Because I was like, he's still a lieutenant.
Right. Let's do
yeah,
some
they
math.
get back in 78, right?
This is 82, so it's been 4 years.
Yeah, so
So their little girl, their little baby girl, would be like 4 years old at this point.
Okay.
And to be fair, if you're taking a bunch of time off, both because you've been on duty for 7 years and because you've got a kid to raise, you're probably not racking up the promotion points very fast.
I could see Tom. Starfleet was never Tom's dream to begin with.
Well, it clearly was. No, you're right. I guess that is true, sort of.
I think it was his father's dream.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'd forgotten about that. I was about
to think of what's actually canon because I 2 weeks ago read the Janeway autobiography.
Oh, I've read that.
Yeah.
And Pathways, the mini biography, or no, not the autobiography. I was thinking of Mosaic, the novel by Jerry Taylor.
Oh yeah, the Jerry Taylor book.
Yeah.
So I listened to the audiobook of the autobiography because it's read by Kate Mulgrew.
Oh, now that does sound intriguing.
Oh yeah. I would love, she has a great voice. I'd love to listen to that.
Did they get Patrick Stewart to do the Picard one?
I don't think so.
No, well, not surprising, but still disappointing.
He ain't gonna sit in a recording booth and read a whole book.
I mean, defending Patrick Stewart earlier today because someone was like, "It's weird that he doesn't sign, doesn't really do autographs anymore."
He's got arthritis.
And people pointed out that he's 81 and has arthritis.
Yeah.
Getting back to Tom, I thought it was amusing that he is famous for his Captain Proton and Fairhaven holodeck programs. That is
but
apparently
that ties
Those-
into Endgame. That ties into Endgame because didn't when it showed like the alternate future, wasn't he like a famous like novelist? Like people had been like
yeah,
doing
he was
all
a
of his
holo novelist.
yeah.
I haven't
So
actually
he's got a
seen
bit of that here.
Endgame since I haven't seen Endgame since original broadcast. So
Oh,
I must
2001. That's literally been 20 years.
I know.
Yes, he was a holo novelist, and honestly, those two make sense to me as the ones that would be like, this would like appeal to a like big group of people.
Yeah.
I don't know if Fairhaven would appeal to people in Ireland who kind of scoff at all like the terrible Irish accents that are in that episode, but
No, not Irish people.
my dream is to share that episode to Colm Meaney at some point because I'm guessing he's never seen the Fairhaven episodes of Voyager. So I just want him to see it just so I can see Colm Meaney be like what the hell is the shite?
Okay, but he's in that weird he's in that TNG episode, right? Where they like
Up the long ladder?
yes.
Maybe. I don't know. I can't remember if he's in it or not, but
I feel like very, very like, I think he's just there to transport people.
Yeah.
And I think he's in a scene, and I'm just like, why would you do this to him?
I don't know if he was that important of a character at that point in the show. I don't know if they sat there worrying about what would happen to the actor who played the transporter chief. They probably should have, but they were gonna the Rumpelstiltskin character was supposed to be a leprechaun until Meanie said, please, no, for the love of God, no.
Yeah, no
I read that somewhere, and I was just like, Jesus, he's right there, and he's a main character at this point.
Let me ask the two of you something, because I thought about this when I was watching this, and I haven't gone back and looked into it too much, but have we heard the computer voice of the Cerritos before this episode? Because we hear it, talk to Boimler a couple times. It's like access denied and stuff like that. Is this the first we've heard it?
No, because I remember it like registering as this feels like a different computer voice, but I can't remember what the old one was.
Yeah, I'd be curious who is playing the computer voice in this episode. I'm gonna have to dig into that.
I was impressed that Robert Duncan McNeil's voice is pretty unchanged for it being almost
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years since like Voyager ended.
Yeah, I thought it still sounded like him, but I've listened to a little bit of the podcast he does with Garrett Wong, Delta Flyers. So I don't know, maybe I'm just more used to hearing him there. But I do rewatch all the Star Trek shows from time to time. I was just watching some Voyager episodes a week ago. So I feel like the old stuff is still pretty fresh in my memory as well.
I think what made me happy about this is when they announced they were doing like a comedic animated show, is like these were the kinds of cameos I was like, oh, this is perfect. Because one, it's easier to get a cameo in animation to begin with because you don't have to worry about getting anyone a costume. You don't have to worry about getting like schedules lining up as much.
The actors are more likely to say yes because they're not going to have to memorize a bunch of lines and physical performance. They just come in and read it.
For someone like Robert Duncan McNeil, who's very busy and hasn't actually acted in a long time, he's been doing behind the scenes.
Was too busy for Picard. They tried to get him on Picard for a small cameo. I think it was going to be when Rafi had to call like her friend who was like an admiral at Starfleet for like some help with something. I think that was probably when they were going to use Tom Paris. It was something like small, like one little scene like that. But he was too busy for that. He's like, no, I don't have time to like go get on a set and spend an entire day doing this cameo.
Yeah. And it also that I think comedy works better for cameos than serious things do in a lot of ways because you can like make jokes and there's less of the problem of people being like, did we really need to see 2 seconds of that character? And I was like, it's a joke. Let it be.
Yeah. It is silly, but it's okay to be silly in a comedy.
Yes.
And
that might be more that I just see in fandom spaces see people complaining about. I was like, the less things people can complain about, the better.
Well, are you telling me that you've seen people actually like take time out of their lives to go onto the internet and complain about Star Trek?
Oh my god. So much.
This is unprecedented. Do either of you have anything else to add to the Boimler and Tom Paris B story before we move on to the C story?
I had one question. Does it feel weird that that Boimler appears to kind of idolize Tom Paris, who is in essence a variation on Mariner? I mean, Mariner's just Tom Paris turned up a couple notches.
Yeah, they're both the bad kid on the ship. I think
with Starfleet officers for parents, and
Oh,
maybe they
yeah.
have maybe they've done a weird name change. You know, so there's a lot of similarities there.
I think that he's just the fanboy. It's one of those like self-aware meta jokes. He's got the entire plate collection. It's like if sometimes a lot of people go to conventions and get autographs from the Trek actors, and you might have something. In fact, I saw this at the convention. If you check out the stream I did with Starfleet Boy, you can hear me talk more about this. But when I was in Vegas, I took time to go chat with Andy Robinson, who plays Garrick on Deep Space Nine, everyone's favorite Cardassian. And while I was at his table, I saw a young woman with a model of the Defiant, and it had signatures from like Alexander Siddig and Colm Meaney and Cirroc Lofton and Michael Dorn, all these Deep Space Nine actors. And she had like this model of the Defiant, and she had Andy Robinson sign it. So she's trying to get all the DS9 actors. It's like
really
that. Like,
cool.
yeah, that was very cool. I thought that was really neat. And Boimler's doing the same thing here with his plate. So yeah, even Paris might not be his favorite, but he needs the entire set, Brian. He's got to get all of them.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you're saying
Pokemon, got to catch them all.
I could also see that with Voyager becoming like famous because of like being stuck, but Starfleet having all the information, I could see Admiral Paris maybe stopping all of the not great things about his son becoming super public knowledge.
all right.
He's a propagandized, more ideal version of Tom Paris out in the public.
And given that he is a
unconscious of like with his son missing, he like in his head has like a more idealized version of him.
And he is a lot more domesticated by the time he gets back.
Yes.
So it's not like he's causing near as much problems now as he was before.
No, he got back and they're like, what's he up to? They're like, look, he's a loving husband and father.
Yeah.
No, I like that idea of Tom Paris, going around like boosting morale on, people want to, he has interesting stories. Like, I'm an ex-con, and then I was in like this tragic crisis, and when a ship I was on was stranded, and then I became like this really functional member of the crew, and now I have like I'm a happy family man, and all this stuff. I think that's like a cool story to like go onto the Cerritos and tell your story. I like that. I would get his autograph.
Yeah,
I would definitely get Tom Paris's autograph. What?
I suppose we could argue that since Mariner has no interest in meeting Tom Paris, the fact that he's a bad boy maybe has been hidden or is not well known.
It could be the fact that he's a married bad boy too.
Or he's changed, yeah.
So she only likes single bad boys. She doesn't like, or I like that she's afraid of becoming Tom Paris.
Yeah, and no one's gonna tie me down like what happened to him. You're not gonna Tom Paris me. Let's talk about this C story, the final storyline we have of Shax is back, much to Rutherford's surprise, and apparently eating a spicy kiwi ketchup on his hot dog, which sounds terrible. This didn't really surprise me. I was kind of waiting for the shoe to drop on this because they kept putting the voice actor Fred Tatasciore, or however you say his name. Sorry if I'm butchering that, but they kept putting his name in the opening credits. So I felt like this was inevitable. And he was also in one of these season trailers. You see him and Kayshawn in the same shot. So I'm like, oh, like both security officers. But yeah, Rutherford is understandably, just as the audience is, wondering how the hell did he come back? We saw him die. Yes, resurrections happen, and and Star Trek. We have the funny moment where the engineering officer, the Lieutenant Junior Grade Cody, asks, how did you come back? And Shax is just crying, and Billups yells at the lieutenant, and Rutherford is still dying to know. He has like that weird trippy breakdown sequence where he sees all the weird variations of Shax, and then finally catches them on the turbo lift and tells them, I demand to know. I'm gonna ask y'all's thoughts on this. But just let me say real quick that I thought it was kind of silly, like undermine that cool death in season 1. I thought that was like kind of emotional, and I think I cried a little bit when I saw that. But I liked that Rutherford's drive, like why must he know, like it wasn't just sheer curiosity. It was I feel responsible for your death, and I feel guilt that you're traumatized now. You died saving me, and that's why I want to know. And then we get the reveal to Shax, which apparently is traumatic to Rutherford as well. But what did y'all think of this storyline?
I did agree with first about like kind of undermining, and I was surprised. I think I'd missed that they were in a shot together, but I did like that it's Rutherford's story, because I was like, okay, of course Rutherford is the most concerned about this. I will say, for a split second, I thought it was going to be the storyline that only Rutherford could see him.
Oh, it was like an implant malfunction or something
Yeah,
like
or
that?
something, or like there's a ghost.
Yeah, I did have that same, is this going to be some ghost thing or something? But yeah.
It probably also that I just binge watched like the BBC show Ghosts, so I was like, Ghost. That's like on my mind.
You have Ghost on the mind.
Yeah.
This is just the gag from S.H.I.E.L.D., right? That's what they're making fun of when they brought back Coulson in S.H.I.E.L.D., and they didn't
Marvel's
explain it for like what, at least a season or two or something.
Yeah, it's like
that's
like
this
slowly
joke.
brought up like what happened to him.
Yeah, you just get these little hints. That's what they're making fun of, right? I mean, I've only seen like 2 episodes of Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I heard a lot of my friends.
I don't think it's directly referring to that.
Yeah,
I think it's
because I feel like there'd be like the weird like Tahiti, like, because part of the thing is they always is anytime someone like, well, how was Tahiti? He would just go, Tahiti's a magical place. Yeah,
yeah,
like,
but this has that same sort of cryptic. There's this thing that happened, but I'm not going to go into details. And here it's traumatic instead of magical, but there's still kind of this almost metaphysical thing going on that happens, supernatural hints of it.
Because eventually, and I haven't watched the early seasons of S.H.I.E.L.D. in a long time, so this could be me misremembering. They put the memories of Tahiti in his place because the way he came back was traumatic, and they were like replacing the memories.
but yeah, I think it is just more of a callback to all the resurrections we see in Star Trek. And there's hundreds of people on these ships. Like, do they take time to like put out like a press conference and explain it to everyone? It's something that I've wondered about myself. Whenever these weird things happen on the ships, do they tell everyone? And
I would think there'd be a welcome back party, and admittedly, maybe not all the junior officers are invited, but maybe Rutherford, because of his involvement in the death, would be, probably invited to the welcome back party. Or
Rutherford, I think, was out of commission for a while, so maybe he came back like from the dead while he was out of commission, and then I would assume probably took some time off if he was dealing with trauma.
I guess, was anyone else? I mean, we know there was that one yellow shirt who was surprised, but was anyone else surprised that Shax was walking around on the ship besides Rutherford and the
Mariner
yellow shirt?
was like, people come back from the dead. That's fine.
Yeah. Boimler too. Yeah, Mariner and Boimler weren't surprised, but they also didn't seem to know much information on it. I just want to point out, in our live audience, Andrew Hayes is saying Worf was brought back to life 3 different times. It's okay for him to come back once. Yeah, like Worf got killed by Q, and then he got killed and resurrected by John Doe. And then when that barrel broke his back, I think he was like dead on the hospital bed for a little bit, and then they were able to revive him. So yeah, Worf has had 3 deaths. There's a bunch of characters that have died. I have some thoughts on that when I get to the Gorn eggs. That's our continuity callback segment of the show that we do at the end. I'm gonna point some of those out, and Klingon Acid Punker in the live audience is saying, so Kayshawn is still security chief then? I don't know. I think it might be a little bit of like a Tasha Yar war situation. I think Kayshawn is here to stay and Shax is here to stay. In the trailer, like I said, there's a shot of the two of them together in the cargo bay when they're doing some, presentation with that alien from the animated series Belm episode when it's like, good morning, Cerritos. Like you see Shax and Kayshawn both in that shot. So I think they're both going to be around. They're both going to be security. It's going to be a Tasha Yar Worf situation. If I had to guess, that's what it reads to me so far.
Yeah, I was wondering, also involving Worf, but like Worf goes to Deep Space Nine and Odo's still security chief, and Worf takes on a different kind of security role, is what I'm assuming will happen.
Yeah. I always thought it was weird Worf wasn't wearing yellow in season 1, but whatever. That's a wild tangent.
Well, I don't think they had quite figured out what all the department division colors were.
They didn't know what Worf's job was.
Yeah. He was just supposed to be, a background dude on the bridge. He was supposed to be like a Mr. Kyle or Mr. Leslie from the original series, and ended up being the guy in the most Star Trek episodes ever. But
yeah, I've definitely read somewhere that it was like Michael Dorf's performance, and everyone was like, we need to use him more.
This guy has like an amazing screen presence. He's like this really neat visual, a Klingon in a Starfleet uniform. We're all used to it, but in 1987, that was like, oh, that's remarkable. Look how crazy this thing is.
Yeah.
I recently was watching some early TNG. He has remarkably good comedic timing.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny Worf stuff. They kind of on TNG they kind of make too many jokes about like Worf being like I don't know, like lame or sucky at something or dumb. Well, like on DS9, they kind of make Worf into more of a badass on DS9. That's a little bit like my Worf, just growing up as like the big DS9 fan. But there's some funny as hell stuff with Worf on Deep Space Nine too. Yeah. I like that conversation with Jadzia when he's like, on the Enterprise, I was known to be quite funny, and Jadzia says must have been one dull ship, which I like the Next Generation, but it is kind of dull at times. Like, let's be honest.
Look, I'll be honest. There's a reason the Enterprise D is. If I had to serve on a ship, I would choose the Enterprise D because I think I'd be least likely to die.
Yeah, it's safe, it's comfortable. Go check out the string quartet and 10 forward.
Besides the fact they put weird plants on the headboard of every bed, all the beds look comfortable.
Yeah, you get your own bedroom rather than having to bunk in a corridor,
in a hallway.
Yeah.
The only other thing I have on this the Rutherford story is just like the weird stuff that Shax describes. I think you have to turn on the captions to actually like understand it.
I need to rewatch it with the captions.
Yeah.
I actually like I wrote it down, but he has like that conversation with well, first of all, like this line where he tells Rutherford why they won't be open and honest about this. It has nothing to do with rank, son. We're sparing you dark truths about scientific depravity that would haunt you for the rest of your days. Once you can never go back to being the man you were before. And then when he actually like goes into detail, he's like, well, about the Black Mountain, right? The place you go when you die. Then the actual line here is it's a spiritual battleground your soul goes to when you have to fight 3 faceless apparitions of your father. The surviving father makes you eat your heart. And then like after that, like it kind of like drops out and you can't hear anything after that. But I assume by Rutherford's expression just gets worse and worse. And that stuff was a little too weird to me, where like instead of being like a reference to something in Star Trek, it was more of like a H.P. Lovecraft cosmic horror type thing, which I like that type of stuff, but I don't know if that quite fit here as like the punchline of this whole comedic storyline.
On the could this happen in real life Star Trek question, at first I thought we were supposed to take this as being part of the whole Bajoran spirituality thing.
See, that's
but then
like
yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, did the prophets have a really messed up way to like?
Yeah, he doesn't throw any of those tags. There's no prophets. There's no pa. There's none of those verbal tags. And he seems to add, you know about the Black Mountain, like, and he describes it as a scientific thing. And the way he's talking about it, it's more like it doesn't sound like he's talking about Bajoran stuff. He sounds like he's talking about stuff that Starfleet command personnel know about, and Starfleet command personnel can resurrect people, and that's
it's
this
canonical.
thing that you. Yeah, well,
there's a
it
black
kind of
mountain when you die, like when Spock died in Star Trek Beyond. When the prime timeline Spock died, he went to the Black Mountain.
I don't know. It's it sounded like he was talking about something all the department heads knew about, rather than something that only Bajorans know about. And that raises a hell of a lot of questions, because in the nature of Star Trek as this big franchise multiverse thing or universe thing. Do you think we're going to get a better explanation of what the heck that is and how they can resurrect people on the Cerritos?
I think it's just going to be like it's just going to be like the koala bear that the whole universe is on the back of, this great cosmic koala bear that we saw in season 1. I think it's not meant to be taken too seriously. In fact, I don't even know if they meant for that audio to be actually heard by the audience. Like I said, like I had to turn on the captions to understand that. So I don't even know
they had to supply the caption people with a script. So they at some point somebody okayed that dialogue, that those lines being handed over to the closed caption people.
I've always thought that that's the case, and then I realized that must not be the case because I've watched shows and they spelt people's names wrong.
They're not always well done, especially if it's a cheap show. The cheaper the show, sometimes they'll be, and sometimes you can see they clearly gave the closed caption guys the script and not the final draft script, and there'll be different significant changes of stuff that was clearly changed on set when they were filming, and it was not in the script, and the guy, whoever the person who was putting the closed captions together, just gave no fucks. He just like, whatever, close enough.
I was watching Psych once, and I think I saw 3 different spellings of the name Sean.
Oh wow. Well, yeah, I guess there's 3 different ways to spell it. So they're like, I don't know which one is right, so I'm just going to do all 3. At least one of them will be right.
What's funny is I was like, they go over this in the show at some point. They like make clear that he's SHAWN. And I'm like, why also Google it? Like,
yeah, there's this, if it's a show like that, there's probably, IMDb or something would tell you. So,
I think it's that Shaq still called him like Baby Bear.
Yeah, Shaq's called him Baby Bear. That was a callback to the second episode, Envoys, back in season 1, when he welcomed him to the bear pack. But yeah, so Rutherford seems like a little stressed out by this stuff at the end of the episode. I think they're going to hit the reset button on that though, and Rutherford will be back to normal next week. But we get like this final scene to end things on where Boimler, he's finally, in the security system, he's finally authorized, so he's possibly concussed, but also happy he's getting drinks with Tom Paris, and Tendi is going to hang out with Mariner and listen to some Klingon acid punk. But
I like that Boimler was going to get his Tom Paris moment. Even, sit down with him, talk to him, get the autograph. I really like that, because sometimes the show is really just keep kicking Boimler in the balls over and over again.
And I feel like we got past that last week, when he was a badass on the Titan, when he saved that crew on the away mission with the Pakleds. And so I thought this week they were kind of kicking him in the balls a little too much again. It's like, are we reverting back to the season 1 Boimler? But I don't know. I want to see more of the Boimler we saw last week. I want to see more of that going forward in season 2.
And again, if they contextualized it a little more strongly, with Boimler saying, well, I could call for help, but no, I'm going to solve this myself. So, he's choosing to get kicked in the balls as a character development thing that he wants to do. I think we'd feel a lot more forgiving about it than which I think seems to be what's going on if you read this, if you pay attention to what everyone says, but it isn't really highlighted at all. I'm not sure if the writers realized that's what they were saying or not. But I did like that he got his plate signed, it looks like he's going to get his plate signed.
I feel like that's the least Tom could do for him now.
Yeah, maybe you can give him some souvenirs, I brought this back from the Delta Quadrant, or something like that. I don't know.
It's Tom Paris. He would just
the Voyager plate collection, do they have like a plate of Neelix that no one can get signed because they left Neelix in the Delta Quadrant?
Oh no. No, that's the kids on Prodigy. The kids on Prodigy are going to go to the Delta Quadrant to get the Neelix signature.
Good,
So
good for them.
That's the mission of the
That's
USS
clearly
Cerritos there.
that's clearly the justification for that whole TV show.
All right. Well, I do have a bunch of Gorn eggs to run through, but before I do, I just want to ask: do either of you have any quick final thoughts you would like to toss out about "We'll Always Have Tom Paris"?
I don't know if I have any big idea that I haven't already expressed in the show that we've discussed. I did want to say, I think my third or fourth favorite joke has to be tiny Dyson sphere. as far as an oxymoron,
yes.
It makes, yes. If you know what a Dyson sphere is, by definition, they can never be tiny.
Actually, in that scene, because I like in one he's dressed as Abe Lincoln.
No, I don't think it's Abe Lincoln. It's something else. Yes, I'll reveal it in a moment.
Because I thought it was Abe Lincoln, because I think the last episode also had like Abe Lincoln's skeleton, right?
Right, but that was from Rachel. Are you familiar with the original series?
Yeah.
So do you remember the Savage Curtain where they have like Lincoln resurrected?
Yes, but I couldn't remember the title.
Okay, so that alien species, the Excalibans, that was like an Excalibin exhibit on the collector's ship. So that was the Lincoln reference there.
Okay. But yeah, I was like, why? Yeah, I'd be interested to see what he's supposed to be dressed up as he's not Lincoln.
Right. Well, I will let you know as well as everyone else in just a moment. I might be wrong, but I think it took me a while to figure it out, and I think I got it. But I'm just going to go into the Gorn egg segment of the show now. These are our Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections. There's always a lot in Lower Decks episodes. If I miss any, and you catch something I missed, be sure to comment or message me and let me know. But we shall begin. Starting off with the title of the episode, "We'll Always Have Tom Paris." Obviously, a callback to the Next Generation episode in season 1 called "We'll Always Have Paris." That's a reference to Casablanca. That's from that monologue that Rick gives. The you gotta get on that plane, kid. From that moment. Next up, Rutherford mentions Tyrellian death syndrome. That was why Ensign Escher had been promoted, because she had cured the captain's Tyrellian death syndrome. That's from the Next Generation episode Genesis. That's what Barclay incorrectly diagnosed himself with having. When Boimler can't get his breakfast replicated in the mess hall, he ends up, for some reason, getting a bonsai tree. There were numerous bonsai trees seen in the Next Generation, and there's also one on Deep Space Nine that if you're watching the video of this, you can see behind Rumpelstiltskin. But it was in the O'Brien's quarters. It was one of Keiko's plants, I guess. The Voyager plates that Boimler has, that we were talking about, those commemorative plates, but also the whole idea of calling Voyager Voy, V-O-Y, that's a reference to how it's often abbreviated on the internet. Even though the Star Trek Encyclopedia used VGR, I feel like it's more popular to say VOY these days. But he also talks about Tom Paris being the creator of Fairhaven, as well as Captain Proton. Those were holodeck programs from Voyager. There's also mention of the time Tom Paris was a salamander in the most popular Voyager episode. Everyone loves it in season 2, Threshold. And there's name drops for Janeway, Kim, and Chakotay in this episode. Boimler and Mariner reference a ton of Star Trek resurrections, and they talk about how bridge characters always resurrect. It's a common occurrence, kind of a weird thing if that's part of your universe, but that trope was first established. I believe the very first resurrection of a Star Trek principal character was in the original series episode Shore Leave, when Dr. McCoy dies and then he's later brought back to life on the amusement park planet, where the computer system that runs the planet was able to repair his body. But there's
I will say this could be justification for getting a promotion in Star Trek if everyone will work real hard to bring you back to life if you die, if you get to the bridge. But if you're
Oh,
below
yeah.
decks, that health insurance program does not apply to you.
Yeah, that's the way you want to get promoted, so that you have better odds of being resurrected. They mention transporter buffer thing resurrecting. I think that was a nod to Scotty and Relics, or possibly the DS9 crew in Our Man Bashir. They also mention restored Katra, or being Genesis deviced. That's talking about Spock's resurrection in Star Trek 3. Talk about mirror universe switcheroo. So that's got to be referring to Jennifer Sisko in DS9, as well as Philippa Georgiou in Star Trek Discovery. They said that the Borg might have rebuilt him. So we did see Neelix brought back to life in the Voyager episode Mortal Coil using Borg technology. Also, William Shatner actually wrote a Star Trek novel. Well, he ghost wrote it, or someone ghost wrote it for, but Star Trek The Return. I've never read this book, but it sounds weird as hell. It's basically like the Romulans and the Borg team up to resurrect Kirk to make him a secret weapon to go against Picard. If anyone's read that book, let me know, but it sounds batshit insane to me.
I tried and failed.
Yeah, I didn't even
read
try.
the synopsis to it once and went, "Oh, what?"
Okay.
Like,
So if you manage to get through it, just let us know, because like someone needs to like buy you a drink or something. You're a trooper. You're a trooper if you get to the last page of that.
Yeah.
The other resurrection that they mention is Shax might be a future son from an alternate timeline. That's how Denise Crosby came back in Next Generation as her daughter from an alternate timeline. Sulla in Next Generation. They mention Time Ribbon or Nexus. That's talking about Star Trek Generations and how Captain, who's captain at the time, Captain Kirk came back. In the Cerritos hallway, Boimler is humming the Voyager theme, and we hear a few notes of the Voyager theme in the score when Tom Paris appears on the bridge. The mission Tendi and Mariner go on to Quelar 2. That's actually a planet established in the Next Generation episode Unification 1 and 2, where Spock shows up on TNG. That junkyard in space, that was an orbit of Quelar 2. And down on the planet, we see advertisements for several pre-established characters or businesses. I guess we have Vic Fontaine. I guess he's doing that hologram, either other versions of the program or the one from DS9 is like on the road, took the show on the road. The Zebulon sisters, they do the famous choo-choo dance that was brought up in season 1. Of course, Quark's bar, he's clearly franchised, and that was established in Picard. He had a establishment at Free Cloud also. And then there is also a billboard for the four-armed lady in Unification 2 that was playing the keyboard. Mariner and the Cation guy at the storage place, they were nerding out over some Klingon acid punk music. There is a song called Gik Tall, and there was I guess the band was called Grethor's Paradise. Grethor is like Klingon hell that was established in Voyager Barge of the Dead. And the word Giktal, that's the Klingon word for to the death. That's what Worf called the fake ceremony he made up when he was basically like blindfolded Ensign Sito in the Next Generation episode Lower Decks and kicked the shit out of her just to make her like stand up for herself. He called that fake ceremony that he made up, or that fake trial, was called Giktal, or it's the Klingon word for to the death. In Star Trek Picard, we see Riker and Troy's daughter, Kesla, right? Named after Troy's dead sister, but she's wearing a T-shirt that I can't remember how you say the Klingon on it, but it translates to sex phasers, so kind of like Sex Pistols. Yeah, it's like Klingon punk rock is like actually a thing. It's like a thing in the future, like humans listen to Klingon.
You have not heard the Sex Pistols until you've heard them in the original Klingon.
There you go, great. And I'm sorry, Starfleet boys, correct me. Her name is Kestra. So sorry, yeah, but Kestra, the daughter of Riker and Troy, into the Klingon music. Also in the
I want the shirt now.
In the Voyager episode Real Life, the Doctor's holographic son was hanging out with Klingon boys, and they were listening to some kind of headbangery Klingon music that was meant to be kind of like loud and annoying, like the teenagers listening to like the annoying loud music. And out on the pads that that Tendi is showing, all her music collection to Mariner and the brig at the end of the episode. One of them features a snowy cave that we can assume is on the planet Borath, and it's the caves of Nomat, which is where Worf meditated as a kid, and he had that vision of Kalis when Worf was a child, who told him, "You will one day grow up and do a thing no other Klingon has ever done before." So those are the caves of Nomat, and there's apparently a song all about those caves. The Cation libido post, they establish, Tendi says that Cations, I guess, go into heat once a year. It's like Ponfar, Ponfar obviously being the Vulcan drive to mate that occurs, unfortunately, only one time every 7 years. So I guess Cations get get a little bit more activity than Vulcans. But um, Mariner mentions being stationed on Deep Space Nine, and accidentally she ran over Worf's Mek'leth. The Mek'leth is like the smaller Klingon sword that he would fight with in DS9, and train on the holosuite with Jadzia with when they do their sexy sparring on the holosuite. We see Starbase Earhart in this episode. That is something that was set up in the Next Generation episode Tapestry, where Picard got stabbed through the heart when he was a young man. But we get like this exterior shot of the Starbase in this episode, and it was actually based on the Starfleet base. And I think it's Coming of Age is the name of the episode in season 1. That's where Wesley had to go take the Starfleet psych evaluation test. But yeah, when we see like this bar at the
that painting was actually a slight modification of a painting done for Buck Rogers.
Oh well,
that was a Buck
recycling
Rogers
some Buck Rogers visuals
art. Yeah,
that's a fun fact.
But when we see like the interior of the Bone Stell Recreation Center, which is a terrible, stupid name for a bar, but that's just kind of Next Generation being a little lame and stuffy sometimes, Bone Stell Recreation Center. But it is the exact same bar that Picard was in. They recreated a lot of the visuals. The Domjot table. The Domjot table looks a little different, but we see like a very similar shot of it. It's just like at a different angle on lower decks than what we saw in Next Generation. But yeah, it was also full of Nausicaans there. Shax and Billups play racquetball, as we learn in this episode. Racquetball was first seen in Star Trek in the episode Suddenly Human, when Picard's trying to teach that kid who's been raised by aliens how to be human and how to play racquetball. But of course, it's probably more famous for Julian and Miles playing it in Deep Space Nine. When the Nausicaans accuse Tendi of cheating with Orion pheromones, let's say call back to the Star Trek Enterprise episode Bound, in which 3 Orion women are able to use their pheromones to take over the Enterprise, because all the men would fall in love with them and all the women would get headaches. So that was a interesting idea on how alien pheromones would work on Enterprise, but it is what it is. When Ensign Rutherford has his weird mental breakdown and sees this crazy vision of all these different Shaxes, there's a few different Easter eggs here. We see Shax in the Mirror Universe Kirk uniform from Mirror Mirror in the original series. We also see a Borg Shax. We see a Shax pop out of a Dyson sphere, I guess, which was kind of weird. But yeah, he said a microscopic civilization, which microscopic civilization might be a reference to the TNG episode Home Soil. But yeah, they have a Dyson sphere from Relics. The top hat Shax that we see that's in the black coat with the hat, I'm pretty sure that is based on Picard's costume when he went to face Moriarty in Elementary, My Dear Data.
Oh, okay. That is. See, I saw Top Hat. I was like, Lincoln.
Yeah,
and I love. With facts, I love that episode. I'm a really big fan of the show The Nanny. So Daniel Davis in that episode.
Oh yeah, that's the Nanny connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's what they were going for there. And the weirdest one probably was Shax wearing one of Neelix's shirts with like the weird polka dots on it. But whatever.
Tom Paris was there. He was just thinking about Voyager.
Yeah, he had Voy on the mind.
Yeah.
There's also a red shirt Shax, so like a security officer from the original series era, and then there is an XO1 uniform shack. So he's got the 23rd and 22nd century security officer looks. I feel like they could make action figures of all these. And there's some weird lines of dialogue, by the way, when it's showing all these weird shacks. If you have the captions on, you can hear one of them just saying "mirror, mirror, mirror, mirror." So I guess it's the Mirror Universe one. You also hear another one saying, "What was the deal with T'Pol's hair that 1 year?" So I guess that was Julene Blaylock's wig in season 1 of Enterprise. And one of them also says, "In the Nexus, it's always Christmas."
I did hear those, and I appreciate the one. Okay, the one Star Trek plate that I've seen that someone has is there's like a Generations one, which just looks like a Christmas plate, but it's that scene from Star Trek Generations.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I kind of want that plate as a Christmas
Merry
decoration.
Christmas, Papa. Yeah.
I don't know why Picard has Christmas in the Victorian era, but
yeah, well, there is a few creative choices I disagree with in that movie.
Well, Patrick Stewart likes to read Christmas Carol, and of course,
I mean,
Kirk
that's
likes.
fair.
William Shatner likes horses, so Kirk's thing has horses. So
I knew why there were horses.
Oh, on the Orion pirate outpost, Mariner says that in addition to bad boys, bad girls, and non-binary babes, she also has a thing for bad binars. Binars being the alien species established in 11001001. Very sexy names right there.
I'm wondering, is the bad binar? Is there like double like? Is it like they're really good? Or are they both bad? Or like are they opposites from each other?
Yeah.
I have many questions about that.
I think they either both be bad or both be good. I don't know.
And also, do you have to have two of the, because binars do everything in twos, so you can't you can't do a devil's threesome, or right? It would have to be a foursome, right, with them. So
yeah, it would have to be some multiple of two. Or no, it'd either have to be with 2 partners, 4 partners, 8 partners, 6. It would go up in like bits like that.
Yeah,
because they're binary.
Like, I'm not here to judge.
Yeah, don't kink shame binars. Mariner, when she says that she couldn't remember Tendi's first name, said, "Oh, I thought you just had like one first name, like Odo." Clearly referring to Odo of Deep Space Nine. And the last Gornag that I have is the mention of the Kazon. That was the antagonistic species we saw in the early seasons of Star Trek Voyager. That is all the Easter eggs and jokes or continuity connections I found. Again, if I missed any, be sure to let me know, and I'll give you credit. I'll put myself on the spot. I'll say I failed to notice this. Someone else had to correct me. And if you have any other feedback on this episode, let us know, because we will read it next week. I have some subspace transmissions I'm just going to go through real quickly. These are comments we got on last week's episode, Keishon His Eyes Open, and these all happen to be from Twitter. The Undiscovered Mugato says, "I think Lower Decks is competently written, but my biggest gripe with it is the never-ending references. Every character constantly winks at the audience. This episode was like that winking, fourth wall breaking, reference upon Easter egg, upon callback times infinity was exhausting." I can definitely see, like I said last week, I can see how some people might feel that way. I had fun with it because I thought a lot of them were deep enough cuts that they felt clever. But yeah, I can see how it might get a little old. I wonder if they'll dial that back as the show continues. Maybe not this season, but maybe in seasons 3 or 4, we'll see. Trek Yards, the big YouTube channel, I assume this is from Stuart Foley, but they replied, "Fantastic and fun episode. So many great references. Such great characters, both old and new, hoping for many more years of this awesomeness to come." And Captain Gil Mintbird said, "Captain Mintbird, his face smiling, so he clearly liked last week's episode." Speaking a little Demarian there. And Jill47, who's been a great audience member, who joined us tonight under the name Klingon Acid Punker in the live audience. She said, "A relief after last week's underwhelming ep. I liked this ending a lot." So yeah, I think last week and this week were both much stronger episodes than Strange Energies. I don't think Strange Energies was bad, but it wasn't on the same caliber as some of the late season 1 Lower Decks. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with these last 2 episodes. I think the show is consistently good and occasionally great, and that's a good place to be only 13 episodes into your show. But yeah, we are going to have to sign off right now. Just want to point out that if you're checking us out live, in a few minutes, Starfleet Boy After Dark, Starfleet Boy's secondary channel, is going to be live streaming. They're going to be talking about a lot of news recently. There's a new episode of the Marvel What Ifs show that they like to talk about over there, and there's like some movie trailers that they might be talking about. So if you're into any of that stuff, be sure to hop on over there and check that out. And again, Rachel, would you like to let people know where they can find you?
Sure. I'm at Dromedork884 on any social media platform you can think of. I would say I'm probably on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok the most. And I'm on a couple other podcasts. I don't know if you want me to list all of them here, but they're you can see links for them on my Twitter, in my Twitter bio.
Okay, so
you have a compliment there from Farpoint Station, by the way.
Oh, Farpoint. He's another long-time audience member.
Oh, do I look like Elizabeth Moss?
You and Mad Men and Handmaid's Tale. Big fan of your work. Yeah, he's a little bit of a smart ass. But I like Farpoint
I'll
Station.
I look like Elizabeth Moss. Did you also like her work?
He's been
did you also like her work in West Wing?
Yeah, so check out Rachel on Twitter if you want to see more of her, and we'll be back next week, Friday night, 7:30 p.m. Central, to discuss the 4th episode of Season 2 of Lower Decks. And until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you, and take